Eli, I have an important life lesson for you today, and I'm going to call it the importance of living on U Street. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. And today I want to give you something to think about, something to carry with you, something to help you with your life. And Eli, this is especially important for you. Living on U Street. For me, that has two major meanings. When I was a kid, when I was 8, 9 years old, the day that school ended, which was usually around the 20th of June. Remember, I'm from the Boston area, so school ends, like right around the first day of summer and begins after Labor Day, different than most of the rest of the country. Anyway, the day that school ended, we would get into the car and we would move from the Boston area to the beach. And the beach was about, 15 or 20 miles away. It took my father an hour to drive. Very slow driver, all right? It took us an hour to get there, and we lived in an apartment that was so small, you can't believe how small this apartment was. The kitchen was also my parents' bedroom. My sister and I shared a bedroom. We had a little tiny bathroom. I mean, this place was tiny. No telephone. We had a telephone, at home, but we didn't have a telephone. We lived in this unbelievably small apartment at the beach. As a matter of fact, the address of that apartment was 18 U Street in Hull, Massachusetts, Nantasket Beach. What was so great about that? I think about that all the time. We didn't have very much material things, but the summers were unbelievable. The beach was walking distance on one side. We lived at the end of a peninsula, so the beach was on one side and the bay was on the other side. What was so great about that? Well, sometimes you get a breeze coming in off the ocean. If it's too brisk, then it was a hot day, then we would go over to the bay side and we would go to the bay and go to the water in the bay. My memories of U Street are just so phenomenal. It was a little tiny neighborhood. The same families would come year after year after year after year. Some of them had summer houses there. Most of them did. We were one of the only ones in an apartment. They all had little cottages, all right? On one side of one house there was a field that was completely vacated, but it had all the grass growing. So one summer, what they did is they burned down a controlled burn of the field and they put up a volleyball court, and we played volleyball all summer. July 4th, actually the night of July 3rd, the whole neighborhood would go to the beach. We'd have a huge bonfire. I remember, with my sparklers, fireworks are illegal in Massachusetts, but sparklers were okay. You take your sparklers, put them in the fire, get them lit, and then run down to the ocean and throw it in the ocean when you get to the end. It was the memories from that were unbelievable. It was also, I can't swim a lick actually right now. Back then I couldn't swim either. It had a styrofoam surfboard. Would go swimming with the surfboard. And the memories were just unbelievable. Played Little League Baseball down there. Played box ball during the day. When it would rain, we'd get together and we'd play Risk with my sister and her friend. And my sister had to have, the yellow pieces and the white dice. And she always won, all right? I never won. Played Risk, she was older than I was, all right? But you think I'd win at least one game. I never won one single game. But had all of these unbelievably great memories of living on U Street. We had zero material things. It was all just going out, doing things, people, other kids that we would see year after year after year for 8 or 9 weeks during the summer. let's talk about something else living on U Street, another memory, and you've heard me talk about this on this channel many times. I worked with a company called Copa, and we had savings and retirement plans for middle America. That was our mission, to get people to save money, to get people to set aside money for themselves. And I walked in as answering a blind ad in a newspaper and just advanced in this company until Bob Anderson, who was the de facto person that ran the company on a day-to-day basis, one day invited me to come and live in his house with his wife and me, all right, and him rather, okay, and to train me in the West Palm Beach office. I was there for about 2 months. I talk about it all the time. It was an unbelievable experience living with them, seeing how they lived, getting his philosophies, his attitudes, his mindset, you know, hearing him say things like, you know, hey, tell them to start sending out resumes. You know, it's just listening to him and getting his mindset was just unbelievably educational, and it was fun. It was learning. You know, another thing with Copa, we had these trips. You know, you reach a certain production level, and we'd have these fabulous trips. We'd take a cruise in the Bahamas, went to England, went to Rio de Janeiro, went to Quebec City, Canada. I mean, just all of these unbelievably great trips. And you know what was phenomenal about these trips was that most of the same people, the producers, would qualify for these trips. And the fun started once you got to the airport. It didn't start when you got to the destination. It started at the airport. Why? Because most of the time people would have to take a plane to go to this one central location, and then we'd all fly from that central location to whatever the big destination was. Well, you start seeing these people on the plane. Hey, how are you? What's going on? And you sit down and you talk with them about what they're doing in business. You had the same interest. It was phenomenal. As opposed to when I worked with another company who also had trips like that, nobody knew each other. You get to the destination and like, okay, yeah. The difference with Copa was everybody knew each other. You would read about them in the company magazine, and then when you finally met them, I met my first wife that way. All right, she was I was going to say secretary, don't say it, administrative assistant with our Los Angeles office. I met her on a couple of these trips, took her on one of the two of these trips, and eventually got married to her. Another example is when we were with a couple of good stories. I mean, these are things I remember, you know, once again, on U Street, experiences, things that happened. We had started, you know, we were a marketing firm, and we would market an insurance product for a big insurance company. And we got a new carrier. We changed over from a company called ITT Life to a company called Aegon, okay, which is one of the largest insurance companies in the world. And so right after we stopped with ITT Life and worked with Aegon, there was a trip, and so all the big shots from Aegon came on this trip so that they could get to know us a little bit. And you know, when you won one of these trips, it was for you and your significant other. All right. Well, at that time I was a pretty young puppy, in my 20s, and wasn't married yet, and I had a girlfriend, so I naturally took my girlfriend. And she was somebody that I hadn't been together with her for years and years. She was somebody I was with for a couple of months, and she was kind of a wild little girl, okay? But anyway, you know, I told her, I said, you know, we got all these big shots from the main company there, so make sure you're on your P's and Q's when you run into them, because they're going to come up and they're going to want to talk to me. I was a manager of one of the offices. So one day, this guy named Steve Lonsberry comes up, and Steve was just the absolute nicest guy, fun-loving, whatever. Anyway, my girlfriend, you know, he's talking to us, and my girlfriend says to him, hey, you got a little spot on your shirt. And he looks down, and he goes like this, all right? And I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I didn't know Steve very well at that time. I said, what has she done? And Steve just started laughing. You know, just a great guy. You hear at the end of these videos, what do I always say? We never end a meeting on a philosophical note, so let's get out there and charge. Where do you think I got that from? That's one of the mantras of Aegon at that time. So, you know, all these different experiences. What is my point by me telling you, waxing philosophic on all of these different things that I think about now? I mean, these happened like 40 years ago, 50 years ago, you know? The key thing to remember, the message of this video is focus on experiences. Don't focus on material stuff. At the end of your life, you're not going to remember that car that you bought, or that house that you moved into, or you were able to build a swimming pool on the house. What you're going to remember are the experiences that you had in your lifetime. Those are the things that you take with you. So let me remind you again, make sure that you have a residence on U Street. U Street is where you have the fun, and the material things come and go. The experiences stay with you forever. And because we never end a meeting on a philosophical note, thank you, Steve Lounsbury and Aegon. Let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.